So when you say the dollar will crash, what do you mean by that? Do you mean just lose value internationally? I mean, what do you mean by
Well,
that?
both. I mean, it's going to lose value internationally and domestically, but you'll see the decline first when you compare the dollar to other currencies. You'll see that decline in the exchange rate. But all currencies are going to be losing value together, even as the dollar loses more value than other currencies. So I think the absolute loss of purchasing power for the dollar will exceed its loss as far as its exchange rate with other fiat currencies, meaning that the dollar's exchange rate with gold, right? I think there you're going to see a much bigger decline than, for example, the euro. So gold is going to get much more expensive than the euro will to buy with the dollar. But they're both going to get more expensive, as will a number of other currencies around the world, because we are just printing more and our economy is more, screwed up. It's more unsustainable in the way it's been structured over the years to benefit from the reserve status of the dollar, where we could just run on these perpetual trade deficits and budget deficits. And we've become dependent on that to a degree that exceeds anything in any other country. And so the dollar is going to be hit harder, and therefore the average American will feel this to a much greater degree than will Europeans or Asians or other people whose economies are not this screwed up and this dependent on exporting their currency and importing everything else.
Yeah, it just seems like there's two camps. There's this divide that's only going to get bigger in America, where people who do have those assets that inflate are going to probably do well, whereas those who don't and are forced to rent and watching rents go up and the price of goods go up, and they don't have anything that goes up with it, that inflates with it. They don't have the gold, they don't have the stocks or the real estate or the investments that you suggested, and that's really my concern. Is as that divide gets bigger, there's more anger, more
and
disruption.
there's more of them than there are of us. And that is a problem when they can outvote us. And so there may be people that think they're doing good because they're escaping the inflation tax, which is what inflation is, a tax. And it falls hardest on those that can least afford to pay it, poor and middle class Americans. But if you think you've escaped it, or maybe even benefit from it because you own real assets, well, what if they come after you with a wealth tax? As unconstitutional as that may be, it could happen. Or confiscatory income taxes, because the wider that wealth gap grows, the more pressure there is to close it with confiscation and redistribution. Even though the wealth gap itself is being widened by government policy. It's not some fault of capitalism, right, or a failure of capitalism. It's a failure to have capitalism that is responsible. I mean, of course, you're always going to have a degree of wealth disparity, and that's a good thing, because people get rich by inventing things and increasing production of goods and services, by satisfying the needs and desires of consumers. And, we're not all equal. We're not equal in our ability. We're not equal in our drive or our ambition. And so there are going to be some people that, are better at improving the lives of others than some people. And those people deserve to get richer. They contribute more and they deserve more. So you're going to have inequality, but that inequality is a price that we pay for prosperity. We have a lot more prosperity when we have inequality. If we make everybody equal, well, we're just going to be equally poor. And what's good about that? Why do we want to make other people poorer if we make ourselves poorer in the process? But the degree that we have today of inequality, the extremes that we have today, are not the result of what I just talked about. This is the result of government manipulation of interest rates and money supply and all this stuff that is allowing people to get rich by doing nothing but sitting on their assets.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now let's continue.
These are not, and speculating and borrowing money from the Fed and taking that money and buying stuff and just letting it go up, right? So this is not the type of wealth creation that lifts all boats, because we're not really creating wealth. We're just marking up the prices of the wealth that's there. So this is going to end badly. But my thinking is that capitalism is going to get another black eye as a result of this, right? Capitalism is not going to look as pretty in the eyes of the average American voter, because they don't understand that it's government, not the free market, that is responsible for all these problems.
Yeah. And it's an interesting, obviously a very interesting election that we just had, but people elected a president who flat out said, I'm going to raise taxes. When I was young, we didn't vote for that president,
Well, it could have been worse, right? They could have gone for Bernie Sanders. But the reality is they may go for Bernie Sanders in the future.
If you would just, can you just give an overview of some of the tax breaks people are getting by moving to Puerto Rico? And if you think that will continue?
Yeah, well, I hope it continues. Knock wood there. But I've already saved quite a bit of money, even if it stops, right? So, it's, it was a good move. The best thing about living in Puerto Rico is Puerto Rico writes its own tax rules locally. So just like a state, Puerto Rico has its own income tax, like not all states, not Florida, but a lot of states have an income tax and sales taxes and different things. But what doesn't apply here are the federal taxes on income or capital gains. So if you derive your income exclusively from the work that you do in Puerto Rico, you do not pay any U.S. income taxes on it. Whereas if you're in Florida and you just work from Florida, even though you don't pay any Florida taxes on that income, you pay federal taxes on everything that you earn. Well, I don't pay federal taxes on any of my earnings inside Puerto Rico. The only taxes I pay to the U.S. federal government has to do with the money that I earn outside of Puerto Rico, right? So I pay zero capital gains taxes, but if I own a stock, in Australia, and that stock pays me a dividend, well, I pay U.S. income tax on that dividend. But if I sell that Australian stock at a profit, I pay no tax on that profit, because the capital gains is sourced to Puerto Rico. The income on my investment is sourced to Australia. That's why I have to pay it. But most of my income I'm earning working for my businesses here in Puerto Rico, and that money is only subject to Puerto Rican tax. Now, Puerto Rico is only taxing me 4%, basically. Now, I do pay Social Security taxes. Everybody in Puerto Rico still pays Social Security taxes, because everybody in Puerto Rico is theoretically, entitled to these Social Security benefits. So they don't look at that as really a tax, but they're just forcing us into this, gigantic Ponzi scheme that every other American is forced into. So, but that's a small amount of my income that comes from a salary that is subject to the payroll, the payroll tax, Social Security, Medicare tax. So for me, it's a very small amount of money. But look, it's great. Anybody that moves here is going to see a huge decline in their tax liability. But it's not like it's a sacrifice. I remember when I first came here, people were saying, well, it sounds great, Peter, but come on, you got to live in Puerto Rico. I'm like, yeah. It's not like I have to live in Puerto Rico. I get to live in Puerto Rico.
Right.
That's why I said, why do you think people are paying triple for home prices here? Yeah. Because the lifestyle is amazing. The people are amazing. The community, the weather. It's a great place to live.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members, where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club, absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. you have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.